Pipe in hand, Sholmes looked down at the thick, rolling fog outside our window. I wonder exactly how many mysteries are out there, hidden within this bed of fog, he said. Indeed, a most bizarre incident, born of a curious advertisement. A hellhound's mad gallop through the shadows of a serial murder, an executed man's graveyard resurrection in the dead of night. And a commonplace killing in a small, forgotten room at the edge of town. There is, naturally, always another side to every case, of which most remain ignorant. And it is that other side which compels me to the scene of the crime, Wilson. So quickly now, take your hat and let's be on our way, my dear fellow. For our adventure is not over yet. Come, the game is afoot.
Yeah, it's the end of the last one. Because it was going on 6 hours, I would just, like, yes, it's over. I just quit. I didn't really say anything at the end. So, Lord Strongheart has this strong desire to establish a permanent and funded, I guess, on the British government budget roster, Forensic Investigations Division to the police force. And he had one going already, but I guess he had it on generally the police budget. It didn't have its own budget or something like that, right? He called it unofficial. He wanted to make it official. And he wanted to become the Attorney General and do so on the back of the accomplishment that he made this Forensic Investigations Division. But now what we just did is we accused the head of the Forensic Investigations Division, and sort of in conjunction everybody working for her. They were just following orders, but they did help out with what she did, to murder somebody and frame up this crackpot scientist guy, but not a murderer, for committing this murder. And did so to cover up a mistake that she made 10 years earlier, where she said that somebody was dead as a result of an execution who wasn't actually dead and the execution was botched. We don't know how it was botched, and we may not ever know. Right? So we just exposed the Forensic Investigations Division that was Lord Strongheart's baby. Lord Strongheart, and not only did we do it, but Van Zykes helped us out. So now you would expect Lord Strongheart to be really mad at the world, right? Mad at Ryanosuke, mad at Van Zykes. And he specifically ordered Van Zykes, do not call in Miss Scythe as a witness, which seems to indicate that he might be suspicious that Mrs. Scythe was behind the thing, which means he might be really good at this. Surprisingly good, and know what he's doing more so than we would think. Unfortunately, he's ambitious and doesn't want to admit when his stuff that's his baby mess up. He has some reason to say that she can't testify, which means that he had to have some suspicion that she could have been the one who did it, and still wanted to cover it up that she did it beyond, even more so, even if it was a murder that she committed. So he's all mad, and he's mad at you, and mad at everybody. Well, we try to and he just gave us permission to return to court. Could he just turn around and just revoke it? That probably will not happen for plot convenience. They probably won't do that, just because we have to have more trials for the game to continue. But you would think that would happen. And a really mad and angry, that was redundant, Lord Strongheart is kind of like if you make a character your enemy, then that tends to facilitate whatever trying to. It's like it's a gateway to that person becoming a villain. It'd be sort of exciting if Lawrence Strongheart became sort of a Damon Gant at the end here. There's actually something bigger going on. So the professor was Kazuma's dad, but that's kind of boring. Was someone who came in as part of a party of researchers of visiting academics to Britain from Japan, and Mr. What's his face? Susato's dad. His name is said a lot, but I still can't remember it. Was in that party, and one of the people in the party disappeared. And he disappeared because he was convicted of multiple murders and executed very shortly afterwards. And the identity of who they convicted of murder and executed, as well as that they even did that at all, that they even caught the professor, was all covered up. But it seems to me, when it comes to the killing of English nobles, that was done by means of a hound. Because this is all related to the Hound of the Baskervilles somehow. And that means, if that's the Hound of the Baskervilles story, if that was the story of the professor's killings, then by connection, it was just a killing. It's kind of goes back to the real story of the Hound of the Baskervilles. It was a killing of English noblemen, rich English people. That the person who caught the professor was actually Sherlock Holmes. And he did so in partnership with John H. Wilson. And Wilson wrote down the story and put it in his chest. Now, Susato's dad had on file a copy of the Hound of the Baskervilles. He got it somehow, which means that Sholmes somehow copied it, but so it didn't necessarily just get put in the pawnbroker's storeroom like immediately. There was some sort of copying going on of that, which means that he knows of the story. Because the story is relevant to him, he probably knows that it was his party member and Kazuma's dad who was the professor, and that the professor was executed, and that the professor was found guilty. So he knows all that, but he doesn't want to reveal all of it to Susato, because that would be this big international scandal or whatever, because they try to make it he doesn't want people to know that they executed a Japanese man in Britain. So it's kind of analogous to the trial of Asa Shin. So he's just kind of holding on to it. Kazuma, and that's Sherlock Sholmes doesn't want to create an international incident either, so he's trying to cover it all up. And somehow the guy with the loot that he was going to give to Mr. Shamspeare is related to this, and I forgot his name too. And so, because he had the collar that went on the dog, Kazuma had something he was trying to do, right, when he went to Britain. That was a little bit different than just simply learning to be a lawyer. And it appears that he knew that his father died in Britain, and he was trying to figure out what really happened to his father. That was his extra task. And just now, he did. And the question, and now Lawrence Strongheart queried Ryanosuke on that. Do you know what Kazuma really came here for? Which means that Lawrence Strongheart might have known that Kazuma wanted to come to Britain to find out what happened to his father. But he let him come over anyway, but he got his death faked. And then Herlock Sholmes is in on the faking of the death, and Herlock Sholmes is a friend of Van Sykes, and he's a friend of Lord Strongheart. So he got into that. And he knows about the incidental incident. He knows about the Hound of the Baskervilles. He knows about the Professor. He knows about the execution. That would tie into him doing the job of faking Kazuma's death. And Kazuma was given amnesia, which might have been intentional on Lord Strongheart. And then the spell got broken. And the reason why Lord Strongheart did that might be so that Kazuma wouldn't figure out what happened to his father. But he didn't want to kill Kazuma. But then for some reason he still queried Ryunosuke on it. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's crazy. And they had the 4 names. Asa Shin, who was the assassin to take out John H. Wilson. The reason why he wanted to take out John H. Wilson is because John H. Wilson knew about the whole Hound of the Baskervilles thing. Susato, because she might have known about it, because she saw the manuscript in her father's office. Kazuma, because he was the son of the person who was executed. He was going to try to find out. And the 4th person was... it wasn't Soseki. That was a mistake on my part. I think John H. Wilson, Asa Shin, Susato, Kazuma? Yeah, that's the 4. Okay. I already got all 4. A lot of stuff there. That was kind of disorganized. The last trial, my goal got cut. And I got buried by a lot of different things. The first one was the whole switching of the cage. The forensic investigator put the wrong cage back at the scene of the machine. She put the one that fell down the shaft as opposed to the one that was dropped into the crystal tower. So that allows you to identify, wait, there's a cage that was damaged a different way than the way that it would have been damaged if it flew into the crystal, or dropped into the crystal tower. I did not pick up on that at all, and by not picking up on that, I basically made this massive blunder and a lot of dead footage, which, yeah, it was a thing. And that kind of got me off on the wrong foot right from the start. I also didn't anticipate the whole twist that it was I basically thought that even though she was a freshly introduced character, what's her face? The coroner was a safe character. She was one of the reoccurring characters. She'd become reoccurring, like Gumshoe, right? And so I completely, that slipped me up. When we were trying to show proof that Enoch Drebber saw the professor get up out of the coffin, get that up out of the ground, I jumped ahead a present. I do this a lot. This is a common mistake of mine. To try to present the camera, which would have been correct, which was a good thing to present. The problem is the game was looking for a way more obscure and hard to think of thing, where how is he supposed to know he's wearing a metal mask, because nobody would have known that unless you would have seen the body. What's another one? There's one more nasty trick. Oh yeah, the one at the end, where you're trying to show that Odious really didn't die from a neck break. He died from being stabbed with a screwdriver. And you can choose for the coroner to add to her testimony the cause of death or what she did. And you would think it would be the cause of death because you know what you're trying to show is that he was killed by means of being stabbed with a screwdriver by the coroner. So that's the thing you're trying to show as the cause of death. So you want to put the cause of death there, but it takes this roundabout route where you instead has to do with the position that he was in when he got stabbed, and it's very confusing. So it was. I personally think that was quite a bit more difficult than the final trial of the first game was. The Hound of the Baskervilles trial, where you revisit Magnus McGilded. There was stuff in that last trial that was trying to be tricky. It was trying to be tricky with Gregson giving one of the Skulkin brothers the music box disc and stuff. But I got through most of that. This was like way more obscure and way more difficult. And it's something that this third trial is something that I might want to watch other people play after I'm done with this whole game and see how they react to it, and see how much I stack up against the masses. Whether or not that was actually really hard, or whether or not I just did it very poorly. Okay, continuing on. 8 days after the earth-shattering trial and Kazuma regaining his memory, we were in the foyer of one of London's most luxurious hotels, the Great Waterloo Hotel. Waterloo isn't in Britain, is it? Huh. It's the city where, Napoleon had his last defeat. There's a famous song about that. Oh yeah, it's Professor Mikotoba. Yes, I forgot the name. Professor Mikotoba is due to arrive at any moment. Yes, I'm so glad we got here in time. Is he gonna get killed? It's like Ace Attorney. You do not want characters to just show up. It tends to be a death sentence for them. Susato-san hasn't been the same since what happened. Not that I'm surprised. The truth about Kazuma-sama's father. Do you suppose my father knew? Yes, he did know, because he had a copy of the Hound of the Baskervilles in his office. That he was actually the mass murderer, the professor, you mean? I knew that's what she was thinking about. There's a good chance, I'd say. I mean, they did come here to London together 16 years ago, didn't they? Yes, that's true. Come to think of it, didn't you say that Professor Mikotoba knew about Kazuma going missing in Hong Kong as well? That's right, but for some reason he wasn't at liberty to talk to me about it. That probably means he knows then. About Kazuma showing up here in London with amnesia, and that he's regained his memory now. Ah, there she is. Forgot his name. Let's see if it's in the court record. Nope, okay. Well, he's here. Father? Hello, Susato. How are you? They say that in Japan? Very well, thank you. We're delighted you've arrived safe and sound. Hello, Mr. Naruhodo. Very kind of you to take the trouble to meet us here. No, not at all. It's my pleasure. I have nothing else to do. We've heard about your extraordinary exploits here in London, you know. The news has crossed the seas. Why are they giving him question marks when his name was already given in the tutorial trial? It has? I always look forward to reading the monthly reports that arise from the steamships from Britain. Oh, I see. Well, thank you very much. Who is this man, and why do I feel as though I've seen him before? Oh, because Ryanasuke hasn't met him. Okay. I mean, he hasn't been introduced to him. He's of course met him. I take it from your expression that you can't quite place me. In that case, how about a little reminder? Seishiro. A firm tap should do it. Yes. A firm tap? What? He's gonna take out a gavel? Here we go, then. I hereby pronounce the defendant, Ryanasuke Naruhodo, guilty. Ah. Oh, you're... The court will now hear. Oh. Your Excellency. Hello, Judge Jigoku. How are you? It's been a long time. Good, you've remembered now. That really did the trick. Guilty. Only I was declared not guilty, wasn't I? And there was no laughing at the time. So, London again after all this time. Hard to believe it's been 10 years. To be honest, I never thought I'd be back. Neither did I. I didn't imagine Japan would ever be invited to an international symposium like this. Though really, I doubt anyone did, to be honest. It's all thanks to you, isn't it, Seishiro? What are you talking about, Yujin? Of course, Judge Jikoku. He must complete the set. He's the other man, who 16 years ago came to London with Kazuma's father and Professor Mikotoba. He's the third visiting scholar. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Ah, I knew you were jealous. Sorry, ministerial status? Yes, didn't you know? Seishiro here is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. It was his personal insistence that allowed you to take Kazuma's place here in this study tour. In other words, your speech to Lord Strongheart wasn't it? Lord Strongheart knew you were going to do that all along. Oh, well, thank you very much. He's really every bit as important as he looks. Ah, yes, now, Naruhodo. I received a telegram from Lord Strongheart yesterday. Oh, you did? It appears that something came to light in a trial you were involved with 8 days ago. I was gonna tell him, don't tell anybody about this. About what happened 10 years ago. That tragedy. Yes, could you tell us any more about it? He's gonna be like, no. Look at those cases just left there on that trolley. Aren't they worried about thieves? I know I am. Haven't you seen the porter over there? Don't worry. He's obviously keeping an eye on everything. So it's a trap designed to catch any chancers who might be tempted. Why did the porter give me such a scathing look just now, do you suppose? Well, some might say you look a little suspicious with your jet black clothes. Not everyone clad in black is some sort of ninja with intent to steal, you know. Have you seen all those sparkling jewels up there? They must have gathered every gem in the world for that. Ah, it's called a chandelier, I believe. It's designed to provide elegant lighting in large, spacious rooms like this. So they had to gather every gem in the world just to illuminate one room? It's probably electric light bulbs that are actually showing the light. If I tried to hang something like that from the ceiling in the office, it would be scraping on the floor. I think perhaps chandeliers aren't for you, Mr. Naruhodo. That desk is known as the hotel reception. Anyone wanting to spend the night has to report there to sign in for their stay. Oh, so do you think that's the head clerk behind the desk there? Yes, I'm sure it must be. I'd love to stay in a grand hotel like this for a little while, wouldn't you? Just to know what it's like. If the hotel fee was paid through our stipend, I'm afraid it might bankrupt our homeland. True, London gives the word expensive a whole new meaning. Look at that, it's a picture of the Crystal Tower. Well, the Great Exhibition is one of Britain's most prestigious achievements in recent years. I wonder how tall it is. It really does represent the pinnacle of scientific achievement in so many ways. There's a 12-meter tall chimney on the bathhouse near my lodgings at Yume University. The attendant there is always boasting about it's the tallest object in the neighborhood. I'm sure. Did you know that over the channel in Paris, there's a tower that's 300 meters tall? But how many times taller than the chimney in Yume Soken Hot Springs is that? If it's that tall, how does it draw properly? The smoke could get stuck, surely. I don't think it's that sort of tower, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay, you have to present the armband. Professor Mikotoba, I wonder, could I show you something? Why do you seem so nervous? I suppose because I'm a student showing something to a professor. That's always quite nerve-wracking. Well, I'm sorry I perturb you in that way, but anyway, I'm afraid I have nothing useful to say about that, really. Why would they have a generic response if there's only one item you could present? That's a wasted opportunity. So, how was the voyage here? Well, 50 days at sea is a long time by anyone's standards. But it wasn't as bad as when we first came 16 years ago. No, that's true. Then I truly wondered if we wouldn't be drifting in the vast ocean for the rest of our lives. This time we followed the same route as you, so we were able to relax and enjoy the experience. So you stopped in France's beautiful capital, Paris. That's not a port, though. We did, yes, though only for one night. And yesterday evening we left the port of Dunkirk for Dover. Just in time for the symposium, in fact. It starts tomorrow. It's wonderful that you were invited to attend such an important international event. I gotta deal with something here. I'm back. I had to eat dinner. I'm very proud of you, Father. It's thanks to Saishiro here. 16 years ago, he managed to ingratiate himself with Britain's Attorney General. I'm sure that's why he was invited, and I suppose you could say I'm something of an appendage by default. Speak for yourself, Eugen. You were close friends with the professor of forensic science at a major hospital. Yes, well, I'd rather not dredge all that up. Really? No, there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then, but it doesn't bring him back. Kazuma's father, I suppose. The professor, the killer who took the lives of 5 members of the British aristocracy, was actually Kazuma's father, wasn't he? That's correct. Genshin Asogi. Genshin. You knew, I presume, father? Yes, he was a close friend at the time. Genshin came to Britain as a police detective. He was studying investigative techniques at Scotland Yard. I've never understood what drove the man to commit such heinous acts. It was a closed trial, so the public never knew the truth, and he was executed with little ado. To this day, very few people know what really happened, even in our homeland. But what about Kazuma? Did he know? Did he know the truth about his father? No, of course not. He was told his father passed away from sickness. However, I suspect he may have had his doubts. Oh, why? As you know, I tried to guide Kazuma growing up as if he were my own son. Then one day, he came to my office at the university and said, I've decided I want to travel to Great Britain and study there. Do you think he wanted to come here to investigate his father's death? I don't know. But when I looked into his eyes, I did know that there was no way I'd be able to stop him. Something else came to light in the trial the other day, actually. Oh, what? Well, having disappeared in Hong Kong and been missing for almost a year, Kazuma's since turned up here in London working as the apprentice of Lord Van Zykes. What? What? That's news to us. So, Lord Strongheart's telegram neglected to mention that part then. As you know, we both thought Kazuma had died on the steamship during our voyage to Great Britain in January. But he didn't die. He's alive. As you knew, didn't you, Father? In actual fact, no. What I did know is that when your ship docked in Hong Kong, he mysteriously vanished. We sent a team of investigators to Hong Kong to try to ascertain what had happened, but to no avail. But he's still alive? And here in London, you say? I never dared even to dream it. Why on earth did the young man not make contact? The government and the police have been chasing clues fruitlessly for months now. Well, it seems that he was suffering from amnesia. What amnesia? When we first came across him again here in London, he didn't know who either of us were. I see. He only regained his memory 8 days ago. This is unbelievable. Yes, it's quite miraculous. I wonder why Lord Strongheart didn't let us know. I must speak with him urgently. I wonder how Kazuma's been these past few days. Would it be wrong of us to go and visit him? That began 16 years ago now. It's a distant memory, really. It was Yujin here, Genshin Asogi, and myself. We were the original three. The first judicial scholars from Japan to travel overseas to study. Ocean voyages were not what they are today, I can tell you. 16 years ago, things were tough for their generation. Your father was an exceptionally fine medical student at Yume University at the time, you know, young lady. Yes, grandmother told me. He went to do research at a great London hospital to study autopsy, practically unheard of in Japan. Yes, it was an eerie place, sandwiched between the back of a prison and a burial ground. Not more talk of graves. Very often there's no one willing to deal with bodies following autopsy work. So you see, autopsy labs have something of an unavoidable relationship with graveyards and prisons. Not my cup of tea at all. Do you remember that Scottish prison governor? Caden, his name was. He was a good man. Is this guy gonna come up again? Caden? Yes, but then of course, in our 6th year here, everything changed with that dreadful case. When Genshin was arrested for a series of the most gruesome murders. I simply couldn't believe it. I know the man for years. I was a witness at the secret hearing, and I tried to speak in his defense, but you went a little too far and ended up facing charges yourself, didn't you? Well, suffice to say that after that trial, we were sent back to Japan. There was nothing more we could do to save Genshin. He was a lost cause, sadly. Are we going to show he was innocent? That's where this usually this is where this tends to go, usually. Well, if you'll excuse us now. Yes, I'd like to get this trunk up to my room as soon as possible. Oh, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have held you up here for so long. I'll call the porter then. Just wait here. So just a bit of a comment. There's a standard, so the mainline Ace Attorney games, starting with Trials and Tribulations, which is the 3rd game, established this structure for a 5-case game. And the structure was as follows. The first case is just a trial only. It was usually somewhat short. The prosecutor was always Winston Payne, or someone who looked like him. The second was a multi-part. The third was also a multi-part, and the third case was usually a bit goofy. I think in Apollo Justice, or Spirit of Justice, one of those two. The second case is the goofier one. But I'm just going to say the third case tends to be a little bit goofy. The fourth case, if there is one, is just a trial, no investigation, just one part, one trial. And then the fifth case is a multi-part, or the fourth case if there is no fourth case. Basically, the 4-case model has just a trial, multi-part investigation, and trial times 3. The 5-case template is just a trial, multi-part investigation and trial, multi-part investigation and trial, just a trial, multi-part investigation and trial. The first game in the series didn't follow that, right? It was the first case was just a trial in one part. The second was just an investigation. The third was just a trial and only one part. The fourth was one investigation, one trial, so only one part but both. The fifth is an investigation trial, only one part but both. The second game seemed to be returning more to the template, because we have the return of multi-part cases. So the first one was just a trial, then a multi-part, then a two-parter, then a two-parter. It was two parts with investigations and trials. Following the traditional template, which the second game seemed to be following, this fourth case would just be just a trial. So I went into this expecting just a trial, but there's awfully a lot here. There's an awful lot going on here, so it may not be just a trial. Which is kind of good, because it adds additional content, but also strings this Let's Play out much longer. Another comment. Dr. Sai's motivation was lame. I mean, the professor ended up dead anyway. He got shot by somebody. What was the big deal? Like, really, say 10 years ago I accidentally declared someone dead who wasn't really dead. It was only one person, he ended up dead anyway, so it didn't matter. It was an execution, it wasn't like a case or anything. It was very little consequence. I declared someone dead who wasn't. For some reason, that was such a huge deal that it made this whole snafu. To me, that just seemed kind of lame. It doesn't seem like a very heavy blackmail material. But, whatever. I'm just continue with this. That was just kind of like random interjection in the middle of comments. I'd like to stay and talk more, but I do have various preparations to make for tomorrow. Yes, of course, it must be a big responsibility representing our entire country. I wish you the best of luck. Miko Topaz to go do his hot and cold. Naruhodo, I hope you'll keep an eye on Susato for me. Keep looking after her as you obviously have been. Oh no. I mean, if anyone's looking after anyone, it's her looking after me. Well, I do appreciate you being there for her after all. I've been a miserable father to her. I've thoroughly let her down. Sorry? What do you mean? Well, it was 16 years ago that I started my long study tour here in Britain, as you know. The very year Susato was born. Yes, I heard. The birth of my daughter was the most joyous event of my life, but... well, sadly it was accompanied by the most tragic event of my life, too. Oh, yes? Susato-san hinted at something like that. It was a rather turbulent time at home. Anyway, I won't bore you with the details. The point is, I became rather less dependable than befits a grown man. And it was then that Seishiro offered me the opportunity to study here in Great Britain. I was too worried about you to leave you behind. So perhaps I was a little heavy-handed when it came to persuading you to accompany me to London. So, that's what happened in a nutshell. And that's also the reason why I now feel compelled to give my daughter as many opportunities as I dare. Though the world does not readily afford young women such things, I must say. And I completely understand, Professor. And one other thing, Naruhodo. If I may be so bold, I have a favor to ask you. Oh, really? Of course. What can I do for you? Well, the thing is, So sorry that took so long, Miss Susato. Now then, allow me to take your bags. Allow me to take your bags. One moment, if you please, Porter. Of course, sir. The machine around your neck. It's a camera, I believe. Quite right, sir. Just 5 shillings for a lovely photograph to commemorate a wonderful stay at the hotel, sir. Well, I think given the occasion, we could justify the expense. Yes, of course. I'd like to thank you for coming with me, Mr. Naruhodo. It's really made Father very happy, I think. Oh well, I'm pleased then, but we were interrupted before. Professor Mikotobo was out to ask me something. Shall we return to Baker Street then? I expect Iris will have some delicious tea waiting for us. Yes, let's go. I'm getting more and more anxious about Kazuma, though. Perhaps I'll try to meet with Lord Strongheart later and ask after him. Okay. Well, we'll go too far out of order here. Well, I see Kazuma's mask on the table there. What was that? A man screaming. In a most unflattering way. Do you think? Could it have been Mr. Sholmes? Oh my, I do hope not. Yeah, I don't do it anymore. Mon ami, mon ami. Stop this disgraceful display, huh? So he's supposed to be French? Who are these people? Look at their hair, it's bright red. I think they must be clients of Mr. Sholmes. Right, you two, you're coming with me now, down to the clink. No, not prison. It is dark and damp and I don't like it. But the darkness is my friend. I am not scared. But we are always scared of the dark. Shut your mouth, you idiot. I will sit quietly in the dark and plan our next daring heist. I like this. I don't like it. Well, tough. We'll finish this down the yard. Now get moving. Bye then, Guinea. Have fun. Oh yeah, thanks, Iris. And thanks, you great detective. Hehe. Guinea makes a fine detective herself, doesn't she? Oh, Susie and Runo. Hello, Iris. We're home. Well, did you find your daddy? Yes, we arrived at the hotel just before he and his friend. Oh, well, that's great news. I hope I'll get to see my daddy again soon. Yes, of course, except he's dead. Dr. John H. Wilson. So, Iris, all that remains now is that greatest of problems known to man. But before we concern ourselves with that, some tea is in order, don't you, my dear fellows? I didn't know this was an anime. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Do I have a crumb or such like on my face? Not so much on your face, as on your head, I'd say. Come along then, everyone. I've brewed a lovely special blend. Time for tea. whatever is going on here today. In that case, let us sit and drink now. For I am, in fact, expecting a guest later today. This looks like last week's edition. What's that article circled in red ink there? It's an advertisement column. It says, "To the Red-Headed League." The Red-Headed League. What's that? I don't know. I've never heard of it before, but... Is something on my face? Clearly this has something to do with that lively hair. Well... The Red-Headed League. On account of the bequest of late Ezekiah Hopkins of Lebanon, Pennsylvania, there is now another vacancy open which entitles a member of the League to a salary of £4 a week for purely nominal services. All red-headed men who are sound in body and mind and above the age of 21 years are eligible. Apply in person on the morning of the 31st at the large park on Lime Street. Get €4 per week if you are a redhead. A most fantastic money-making opportunity. Public health report. Despite the condition of the City of London of late, it has been a positive year so far in public health. Actually, you can pause this and read it if you want to read it. Okay. I do like this fireplace. Yep. And I'm not gonna read all of this out loud, because I probably already read it in the past and just refreshed because the new chapter started. Okay, what was I also going to examine? Oh yeah, this. The mask Zuma wore when he was assigned to Lord Van Zykes as his apprentice. When he cast it aside after the trial the other day, I just sort of picked it up. We ought to give it back to him, I suppose. But he has his memory back now, doesn't he? And I can't help feeling he might turn around and tell me coldly to wear it myself. But isn't he your best friend? Okay. Gotta read the ideas. This blackboard is where Iris scribbles down her latest ideas, isn't it? Let's see, oh, she seems to have drawn a lot of little stick figures all lined up, look. Cheap apples at the market, is what all of them say. What, the little figures can speak? All your questions would be answered if only you would read this month's Rance magazine. Oh, that's gonna be wearying. Okay. Mr. Sholmes, who were the two gentlemen that were here before? Oh, just a pair of petty criminals, nothing of significance. Of course, they have to make a living somehow. And when the mood takes me, I'm willing to turn a blind eye to all manner of infractions. When the mood takes you? All manner of infractions. But when such fellows set their sights on Mr. Hairlock Sholmes, well, that's when their luck runs out. Oh my, you were the target of a crime, Mr. Sholmes? But I quickly devised a plan to entrap them and deliver them to our young detective ally. You should have asked Gregsy to come too. We could have had an arresting tea party. I did send word, but no answers were forthcoming. The man is consummately in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's a word for it, I'm sure. Aha, I have it. A burglar, that's the word. It's a good job he's not here to hear you say that. So those redheads have been up to no good? I wonder what the men did. What was that about the greatest problems known to man that you mentioned before? Is it another fiendishly intricate case, Mr. Sholmes? How should I best explain it? Are you aware of the theory of evolution by natural selection, perchance? Well, I think I've heard talk of it somewhere, possibly. It's a revolutionary scientific theory that was newly proposed 40 years ago now. According to its author, Mr. Darwin, we humans were once apes who lived in the treetops. Why'd they have to go right to the descent of man, just immediately? Wait, what? They could have talked about Galapagos finches first, but no, it went right to the descent of man. Wait, what? We were apes? Indeed. For the very moment those apes descended from the company to live as humans. I don't know if this is exactly true because I haven't read through the origin of the species by means of natural selection, but as far as I am, this is what my preconception is, from what I've heard from teachers and stuff, is that this is never actually written in the book anywhere. Any sort of proposal of man be originating by natural selection from something else. However, there is an illustration that we nickname the Descent of Man. That's like an ape morphing into a man in stages. It's very famous. So it never says anything about that specifically, but there's a picture. And some may theorize that if it weren't for just that one picture, the book would be very not controversial. Because the Christians will tell you that there has to be some sort of speciation that occurs for the biodiversity of the earth to be what it is, especially if you were to fit two of every kind on the ark. Right, so he didn't propose anything particularly revolutionary at the time. People have been selectively breeding things since antiquity. It's that image that made us think of the origin of the species as we do. Anyway. It has been our lot to be at the mercy of the greatest problem known to man. Our lot? What is this great problem, Mr. Sholmes? Why, is it not obvious, my dear madame? The problem of rent. Although it might be that he mentioned, because here's the... If Darwin mentions the idea that reptiles come from fish and then mammals from reptiles, then that would also create a problem. Anyway. So rent has something to do with evolution. But did you not receive a rather large sum of money from Madame Tuspels the other day? Faugh, large sum. One potted herb for Iris and a new motor car for me later, and all of it was quite disappeared, I assure you. So you bought a car. But you didn't have enough for your rent. Okay, this is definitely in character. Honestly, Hurley, you know you squandered it. Yes, well, anyway, 2 days ago, I discovered the answer to man's greatest problem. For the coming month, at least. And what was the answer? Why, there is this substantial clue before your very eyes. Don't tell me, let me see. Humans are sorry creatures, unable to see what is in front of their noses. Let me give you some assistance. Don't look, but observe me very closely. There's one particular feature about my person that has changed. You should notice it in the end, I think. In the end. It's been stabbing me in both eyes right from the very beginning of our conversation. I think we might need another clue before we uncover the full answer, Mr. Naruhodo. Thanks for the hint. I'll be tearing my hair out if this charade goes on much longer. Looks as though someone circled an advertisement in this paper, Mr. Sholmes. To the Red-Headed League. Does that strike you in some way? I was thinking that just maybe it might be related to your bright red hair. Hehehe. So, at least last you've learned to apply my methods, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry. In the first instance, and quite indispensably, observation. Believe me, I could have seen that hair with my eyes shut. So then, allow me to regale you with the details of my latest exploits. Regale or boast. Well, at least you did, like, color your skin darker. And then... well, I'm not going to get into that. So what is a Red-Headed League, which seems to be the subject of the advertisement you've circled? You noticed it in the paper, then? That, my dear fellow, was going to be the source of this month's rent payment. It was? How? According to the advertisement, the Red-Headed League is a distinguished institution of fellows of unspecified governance. In fact, the only condition for becoming a member is having red hair. I don't think you understand, Mr. Sholmes. It's a specific genotype, not... you can't just dye your hair crayon red. That doesn't entirely surprise me. But listen to what the lucky redheads receive once they join. Your hair is pink, though, which is really weird. You're also the only character with a weird color hair in this entire game. An unconditional salary of £4 a week. Oh my, £4 a week. But why? What were they paying people for? That I don't know. No details are given in the advertisement. That's what we call fishy. But surely every red-headed person in the country would be flocking to join in that case. You're right, Susie. There's no time to lose. I'll put my application in at once. So will I, just on the off chance. That might be stretching a point, I think. The trouble is, they have a fixed number of members, you see. Oh, I see. So once a certain number of people have joined, no one else can. But as luck would have it, one member recently passed away. It wasn't particularly lucky for the redhead in question, I feel, Mr. Sholmes. So you decided to try to join in his place? Correct. I mean, look at me. Have you ever seen such a red-headed fellow? No. So why? Why did it have to go so wrong? What on earth happened? A blunder, Mr. Naruhodo. Though it pains me to admit it. What did you actually do to your hair, Mr. Sholmes? I'm glad you asked, Miss Susato. What you see atop my head is neither dyed nor a hairpiece. I changed the color of my hair overnight. By the wonders of chemistry. Chemistry? I was conducting some research into a method of rejuvenating spent tea leaves. And in the course of my work, I stumbled upon a potion that, when taken, turns one's hair a flame-like red. Would you like to try it? It will make every hair on your body perfectly crimson. It didn't make your eyelashes red, just your eyebrows. But your eyelashes are hair too. Also, your arm hair isn't red. We would have been able to see that. I think I'll pass. Mr. Sholmes, is it quite safe to drink? Surely it's bad for you, isn't it? Hehehe. Amateurs are always hampered by such fears. Oh, I should never have doubted you, Mr. Sholmes. You mean to say... Oh, of course. To earn 4 pounds per week, one must be prepared to turn a blind eye to a little danger. That degree of red signals more than just a little danger, surely. So anyway, Hurley left full of confidence yesterday with his new red hair for the park on Lime Street where the Red-Headed League was interviewing prospective new members. So what went wrong? The whole park was choked with red-headed folk like a coaster's orange barrel. I queued for 8 hours solid before at last I reached the front. But when the panel of interviewers saw me, they immediately said, "Ah, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, are you in disguise to conduct an investigation?" So naturally, I had no choice but to reply, "Shh, don't give me away." After which I could do little else but turn and leave. Then this morning, when I looked in the mirror, irritation stirred within me. So I turned that pair into the police. Oh dear, what a disaster. For Hurley and those 2 redheads. So they didn't commit any crime at all. Like, nothing. They just arrested them for nothing. Well... Gina's gonna get in trouble for that. Mr. Sholmes, isn't it about time you told us the truth? Just over a week ago, you said to us, "I will now tell you something of the first importance, my dear fellow. Great detectives are wont to lie. It will serve you too well to remember that." That case of Rod, the SS Buria in January. Kazuma wasn't killed, and you knew he wasn't dead at the time. So what was really going on? The fellow was unconscious for a very long time. If he hadn't regained consciousness when he did, his life would have been in mortal peril. Of course, a side effect of the prolonged comatose state was amnesia, as you now know. It was a simple enough task to silence the crew. But how? After they carried him out of the cabin, I assembled them in the lobby area. Then I made them swear to leave him unconscious and have him unlaid from the ship in Hong Kong as a murdered corpse. Oh, how horrible. It was necessary to find some material with which to persuade the crewmen to keep their word, of course. But why? Why did you do it in the first place? I will be at liberty to elaborate in due course. But for the time being, I would like to reassure you. I didn't foresee subsequent events. What events? His disappearance in Hong Kong. Oh. I believe I may have made a gross error of judgment. Mr. Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes, you mentioned before that you were expecting a guest today. Indeed, Miss Susato, that is correct. Not another one of those red-headed gentlemen that were here before. Not at all, they are petty villains. The guest I am expecting is a client. Oh. A young gentlewoman who wishes to appoint the services of this great detective, no less. Oh, how wonderful, Mr. Sholmes. You must stay and observe the fashion in which a great detective receives his customers. Must we? I have you in my clutches now, Rint. Just as I have you in my clutches, redheads. That hearty laugh is masking rather sinister thoughts, I feel. You know, the lady isn't due for another hour yet. You can interpret that a little differently. Don't feel as though you must wait around if you have other things to do. I don't feel like going around and examining everything in this room again, so I'm just gonna move. And this is where Van Zyk's gonna get chewed out by Strongheart for exposing his coroner's misdeeds in front of all of the public. Here's the final draft of the opening address for tomorrow's proceedings. I supplemented your original with the figures you asked for from the yard. Oh, so Van Zyk's was doing like helping with the speech writing. I see, excellent work. Thank you. You're welcome, my lord. What's Lord Van Zyk's doing here? Why, there seems to be an awful lot of tension in the air, wouldn't you say? This place is stifling enough as it is. We don't really need any more tension. My apologies, I didn't notice you come in. Your small stature and dark dress make you all but invisible to me. Oh no, it's entirely my fault for wearing black, I'm sure. From now on, you must dress in white from head to toe whenever you come here. Now then, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, my lord. I'm right here. Kill me now. Is something wrong? Perhaps it's a little too hot in here for you. No, not at all. I mean, I've never experienced a room with such perfect temperature. If you're sure, the beads of sweat carving their way down your face seem to suggest otherwise. Because of the daggers you're staring at me with, mainly. As you're no doubt aware, my International Forensic Science Symposium begins tomorrow. In fact, your father arrived in London earlier today, I hear, madame. Yes, that's right, my lord. He's extremely honored to have been invited. I'll leave the remaining preparations for the meeting room in your capable hands then, Lord Van Zyk's. I will attend at once. He gave you a very cold stare as he left, didn't he? I know, but I haven't done anything. Have I? What do you mean? These past few days, my feet have barely touched the ground, I must say. My dedicated right hand of many years was recently put out of action in spectacular fashion. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is your left hand still of service? What? I broke my right leg. Oh, is your left leg okay? Even if he didn't get the metaphor, it's still a weird thing to say. Mr. Naruhodo, he's talking about Dr. Scythe. Ah, of course. I'm terribly sorry about that. I was just, doing my job. Fear not, you've done nothing wrong. Dr. Scythe's own wrongdoing precipitated the situation. You needed to concern yourself with it any further. That would be a lot easier to do if it weren't for that piercing stare you're giving me. Lord Van Zyk's is doing an admirable job of holding the fort. It's like, yeah, Strongheart's putting on a very bad acting performance. Though, disturbingly, his apprentice has been missing since yesterday. Oh, missing? What's become of Kazuma-sama now? Okay, we don't have anything to present besides the Red-Headed Club, right? I'm not gonna examine this room again. Not long ago, visitor numbers to the Great Exhibition exceeded 30 million. 30 million? Are there even that many people in the world? As a comparison, Mr. Naruhodo, the population of the imperial capital Tokyo is 2 million. I will be opening the International Forensic Science Symposium in the exhibition's main auditorium. This event has been 2 years in the making, 2 years of preparation and negotiations with other countries. Sounds like a tremendous achievement, congratulations. The 20th century will see the wholesale adoption of forensic investigation techniques, and cooperation between policing organizations around the globe will be essential. Which is why the landmark first symposium has to be hosted here at the heart of our great British Empire, in order that Scotland Yard can become the leading investigative organization in the New World. He's the same as ever, I see. That passion of his is quite something. You're every bit as passionate in your own way, I'm sure, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm the only person in this country who truly cares about a future that embraces forensic science. It is my intention to become Her Majesty's Attorney General and reform the Yard from the ground up. Although, my right hand, was really... But whatever. So the disgrace of the forensic investigation team has been a bitter blow to my ambitions. I first established the forensic investigation team a year ago, experimentally to start with. With Dr. Size as the helm, it was steadily accruing an impressive record of achievement. I was on the verge of changing its name and elevating its status to full-blown forensic investigation department. And, can you not do that now? Obviously, nobody wants to hear anything about it at the moment. Even I can't keep the story out of the papers. 6 million Londoners will be cursing forensic science now. This incident will set back our country's advancement in the field by a good 10 years, I'd say. Unintended repercussions of our trial. We simply couldn't have overlooked what had happened, though. Of course not. We should all be grateful to you both. Meanwhile, I'll kill you. Anyway, I'll still reform this country's policing when I become Attorney General. This might delay my plans, but it won't alter them. Nothing will stand in my way. I'm about Lord Van Dyke's apprentice. Ah yes, that came as a surprise to me, I must say. That you and he are old friends. How did he become an apprentice to Lord Van Dyke's in the first place? It came about 3 months ago. An unidentified Asian man was apprehended by border police. They found him hiding abroad aboard a large goods vessel. Oh my. So he stowed away to get here. He had no papers to identify him, no passport, and he was suffering from amnesia too. Other than the fact that he was clearly of Eastern descent, there were no clues as to who he was. So I decided to assign him to Lord Van Dyke's. That way I could keep him and not keep an eye on him. Yeah, just a random I don't know, Filipino guy shows up at the coast of the United States with amnesia. We go, this is how we're gonna deal with this. We're gonna make you an assistant to the Attorney General. But then why the mask? I didn't want to burden Lord Van Dyke's with tiresome explanations about why he had an Eastern appearance. BS, Strongheart! Because it would be so much easier to explain why he was wearing a mask. He's proving to be a great help to Lord Van Dyke's. I have high hopes for his future. By the way, do you know where he's gone? No idea, but I believe he's left London for the time being. Well, that was a whole sack of lies. I take it you also didn't know that the man's father was one of our country's most infamous criminals, I mean. Genshin Nasogi. What we learned from the trial 8 days ago was a huge shock, finding out my friend's father was... Ah yes, Genshin Nasogi. The professor case 10 years ago caused a great stir here in Britain. They were such awful murders and unprecedented, using a ferocious dog as a murder weapon. And no one would have believed the culprit was a foreign student invited to study here by the government. So the true identity of the killer couldn't be made public then, and can't be made public now. Nobody in your country knows it was him, and neither do the citizens of London. The main motivation was to avoid aggravating relations between our two nations at the time, I understand. Correct. However, it has to be noted that there were some supporters of the professor's apparent cause. What? Supporters of a mass murderer? The majority of the man's victims were a blight on the aristocracy of the day. Somewhat ironically, their deaths actually benefited society as a whole. Or so a fair few thinkers in London believed, anyway. Including Clint? Right, I see. But it was still murder, wasn't it? It seems very similar, doesn't it? To the idea of the Reaper of the Bailey. Ting-a-ling-a-ling. Aha! Here is my guest now, my latest client with money to spend. Oh, I do hope it's an exciting case, Hurley. Remember, Iris, we are at present gripped by the greatest problem known to man. I must be willing to accept my case, no matter how unstimulating, save locating her one way, of course. Don't spare anyone's feelings, will you? Oh dear, I'm afraid that Hurley can lack a little tact, especially just before the rent is due. Twack. Mr. Sholmes, Mr. Hairlock Sholmes, please, oh please. Please find my husband, he's run away. To upset me? I beg your pardon? Never mind, a personal matter. My apologies. What exactly are you trying to say, Mr. Naruhodo? I didn't say a word. Come, my dear madame, be seated. Iris, some tea, if you please. Of course. What's the matter, Miss Sato? Oh, it's just that gentlewoman. I feel sure I've seen her somewhere before. Very recently. Yeah, she's on the jury. So what? She wasn't, like, bad or anything. Well, now you've come to mention it. As I explained earlier, my name is Evie Vigil. I implore you to take the case, sir. Money is no object, simply name your figure. Money and wealth are of little consequence to me, madame. Being offered a case to solve is a reward enough. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you are the picture of benevolence. And he says, but I want this much money. I'll of course make a mental note of your offer, however, for contingent reasons. I trust you'll remember your words also. If I might inquire, sir. This gentleman and lady would be... me? What I'm about to tell you, I should like to communicate in the strictest confidence, you understand. These are my friends. I assure you, you may say before this pair anything which you may say to me. I see. I can vouch for the gentleman personally, after all. He's hard of hearing. Why did I ever get my hopes up? Forgive me for asking, Mrs. Vigil, but have we met somewhere before? Quite recently, perhaps? Oh my. Ah, my dear fellow, what is your intention? Clearly you have no ability to differentiate the facial features of the English. If you wish to invite the lady to tea, you must do so in a more gentlemanly fashion. Is it possible that you're the nice young lawyer from the trial I attended last week? Oh, I knew I recognized her. To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand. Oh gosh, oh golly, it sends shivers down my spine. I didn't quite recognize her because she's acting so differently now. It must be very difficult for you as a lawyer, being hard of hearing, I mean. Pardon? Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I don't worry if I can't hear. It was a frippery, really, nothing more. Now look what you've started, Mr. Sholmes. Thank you very much. I believe it would be prudent for you to sit quietly in the corner. Yes. Tell us about your husband, madame. Mr. Vigil, my daily, is 40 years of age. I have a photograph here. Is this supposed to resemble the cinnamon bun guy from Trials and Tribulations? He is an entirely unremarkable gentleman, by appearance at least. How long have you been married? Why is that relevant? It'll be 15 years this year. We have a cordial relationship, and my husband's income is more than adequate, so we live quite comfortably. As it would appear, I need only look at you to know these things. Oh gosh. Your dress is the latest style, your hat clearly regularly groomed, and your eyes are animated. In short, you have no inkling as to why your husband might have disappeared, correct? That's right, he's a kind man with a strong sense of loyalty, and he's rather dotes on me. Which would point to the possibility that he has become embroiled in some incident or other. Well, that's exactly what I fear must have happened, Mr. Sholmes. I'm quite beside myself. My husband's employment is somewhat unusual, you see. What if he incurred some miscreant ill will? What exactly is your husband's line of work? He's a warder at the prison. A guard. That is somewhat unusual. So, your husband is a prison warder. That's right, yes. Well, in actual fact, he's the chief warder. Indeed, I see. Well, chief prison warder certainly qualifies as something of a specialist occupation. You got in trouble for the, what's it called, the professor case? Yes, it does indeed. My poor husband must prepare those dreadful punishments and see that they're carried out. Dreadful punishments? Does she mean capital punishments? And at such times, he must occasionally spend a night or two in the prison dormitory. But for that extra responsibility, he is remunerated more handsomely than the other warders. Of course, we make no mention of my husband's work to the neighbors. Yes, I believe your prudence is justified. Tell me, at what prison is your husband engaged? Barclay Prison, Mr. Sholmes. Really? Barclay? Oh, a fine establishment. If I'm not mistaken, there is a large cemetery just behind it. Yes, that's correct. Lowgate Cemetery. No. Lowgate Cemetery, the very place we were discussing in court. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable, my dear fellow. And yet undeniable. Sorry, Mr. Sholmes, I'm afraid you've lost me. Oh, excuse me, I was just reading his mind. Pay no heed, madame, pay no heed. A private matter. This can't really be a coincidence, can it? So, to the matter of your husband's disappearance. When did you realize he was missing? Please try not to laugh. It was yesterday. I'm sorry, yesterday? That really is recent, laughably so. The truth is, my husband does at times have occasion to spend the night away for his work. It's not at all out of the ordinary for him not to return home at night, but this is different. For him not to make any contact for a whole day, that has certainly never happened before. Oh, my dear Daly, whatever can have happened? My dear Mrs. Vigil, please, calm yourself. Now then, have you contacted the police? Why, naturally, but sadly, they refuse to listen to my pleas as my husband has only been missing for 1 day. I was asked to wait patiently at home. In truth, Mrs. Vigil, I concur with the police. However, let's not be hasty. I have no reason why we should not engage my deduction powers to track her husband down anyway. Oh, thank you, Mr. Sholmes. And furthermore, let me assure you, a chance to solve the greatest problem known to man for another month has no bearing on my decision. I seek only to put a sweet smile on another Londoner's face. That's really all there is to it. You have my eternal gratitude. I shall pay any sum you care to mention. You seek only to put this sweet rent in your landlady's purse. That's all there is to it. Thank you for everything you have shared with us, Mrs. Vigil. I believe I have all the information I need to begin my investigation. Now please report to me soon with good news, sir. Fear not, madame. In a day or two I shall be contacting you with a heartening report, I'm quite sure. So soon? Oh, how splendid, Mr. Sholmes. Good news should be delivered early, I always say. If you should be so kind as to leave the photograph of your husband in my possession. Thank you. Now, allow me to show you the door. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Sholmes. You've been simply marvelous. Even though he's done nothing but talk. You know, I think it every time, Hurley. But how do you come out with such nonsense? Good news in a day or two? Are you sure? I can't be sure, of course, but then I didn't swear on it. I merely gave the good woman some hope. I hope to be able to give her good news, one might say. After all, the ridge must be paid by the end of the day tomorrow. By that time I've successfully located Mr. Vigil, we shall be mutually relieved. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? Don't look at me with those pleading eyes. Well, my dear fellow, did you hear the details of the case? Yes, my hearing is surprisingly good, actually. Excellent. And what did you make of it? Well, I was surprised to learn where her husband worked. At Barclay Prison, I mean. Ah, so you noted that. Of course, especially with the mention of Lowgate Cemetery. It's like they wiped him out to clean up the people who possibly could have known about. But why would they do that after it went public? Barclay Prison is where that notorious man was incarcerated, the professor. And now a warder for the prison has mysteriously disappeared, it would seem. It's all very peculiar. Indeed. But nothing you can't handle, I'm quite certain, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Run along to the prison and see what you can glean. Would you? It's the prison governor you want. No doubt the man is equally worried. But aren't you going to go yourself? Yes, he will, but he'll show up at the end as a machina. Surely you needn't ask. I can't possibly be seen out with this hair. But didn't you go to Lime Street with that hair? That was quite a different matter. So I leave you in leave it in your capable hands. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm rather busy. Of course you are. And I have to stop there, so I will. It's definitely breaking the pattern because there's an investigation on the fourth case. We're gonna find him murdered, aren't we? Yes, we are.